Today's podcast is with Srinivasa Nookala. He's a father, a husband, and he lives outside of Boise, Idaho. Srini has a civil engineering degree, a master's in construction management, and a master's in business administration. Srini loves spending time with his wife and his daughter. He enjoys playing racquetball and is an avid skier. Srini is a very dynamic person, and he's a joy to be around. If you spend any length of time around him, you will for sure learn something new and be very entertained. Srini is an amazing construction manager and has worked on some of the most fast-paced and complex construction projects in the entire country. He is a complete wizard when it comes to construction project management. I've never met anyone quite like him in the industry. Srini and I met in late 2019 and worked on a project in Boise, Idaho for Amazon. We became good friends and have continued our relationship over the past several years. Srini is now a real estate developer and is a vice president for a development company in Boise, Idaho called LDK. I hope you enjoy this podcast with Srinivasa. Thank you.
Okay, Srini, this is how we generally start. Where are you from?
India, originally.
Hyderabad.
Vizag. Yeah, it's a small city on the coast of Andhra Pradesh, which is a state, southeast part of India.
Would you say the population is in the city you grew up in?
25 million.
Huge.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 1.3 billion people, so land in India is very dense with people.
What's Los Angeles, Kyle?
Like 13 million.
New York, I think New York's 15.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn.
Chicago 11, I believe. Yeah.
So 25 million.
And all of those cities, you have a huge Indian population.
Yeah.
Majority of the metropolitans in the U.S. have a lot of
Indian people.
Indian population.
Oh yeah, I wonder what that percentage is.
Indians?
Yeah.
About like 12%.
Wow. There's a lot of Indians in like Vancouver, Canada.
Canada. Majority of the people that come to the U.S. to go to school, either if they don't find a job, their next step would be to go to Canada and obtain a permanent residency, or it's easier to immigrate to Canada from India directly because of the visa regulations and availability.
Yeah.
So if they move to New York or LA, from what you were saying earlier, it doesn't even feel congested being from India.
No, it actually feels at home because
it feels like half as congested.
Because Indians, just like animals, right? Like everyone wants to stick with their own pack, and Indians are notorious about that. Same thing with Mexicans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They have this family and societal belonging, so they stick to their groups usually a lot.
But I mean, there's just like a way that your culture does things, which is so much more comforting than being totally.
As an example, like we live with our parents all our lives, especially the men, even after marriage and stuff. So it's,
and that's like normal across India.
Yeah. There is no concept of like, you have to get out of the house when you're 18 years old. That's usually not how it works in India. So that, and also the privacy, right? Like we like to be living by ourselves in our houses or apartments, and Indians are, how can we save more money? I lived in an apartment, 2-bedroom apartment. We had 6 people in it during my college.
Okay.
Yeah. So we shared the rent, and it was like $200 each, right? Like for $1,200 rent. But I would never want to live with someone else after I started working.
Right.
Yeah, it's not for me.
You don't want to go backwards.
No.
So what was it, describe to us, like what was life like when you were growing up? So go back to kind of some of your earliest memories, whether you were 3, 4, 5 years old.
So Indians give a lot of importance to education, generally speaking, especially the South Indians, and having degrees, going into stable jobs. My dad's generation relied on government jobs as a security, right? Very similar to the US, where the government jobs have a lot of perks, not too much of hardworking push from people.
They're like very reliable jobs.
Reliable, yeah. Like a security. When I was growing up, I didn't play much games, like, just kids or anything. It was always focused on my dad and family figured out that I was decent at studies. So it was always about like, okay, you're gonna become an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So I was told I was gonna become an engineer. And that's all my schooling was about, how to get into college to get a civil, like get an engineering degree.
Mm-hmm.
It's so pre-written almost, right? As an example, I was telling Kyle this yesterday. My sophomore year in high school, that's when kids at that age start preparing for entrance examinations to go to college. So Indian Institute of Technology is a Indian Ivy League school, and on an average 400,000 people write an entrance exam to get into that school, and only 15,000 people get selected to write a second level exam.
So it started at 400,000?
Yeah.
Okay, and then they knock it down to 15,000.
Yep. And the exam format for the first level is multiple choice. And then level 2, they ask you a question, you have to solve for it. There is no checking the answer, no multiple choice. And from the 15,000 people, 2,500 get selected.
Okay.
And IITs, when I went to IIT.
So IIT, pronounce it again. What does the stand for?
Indian Institute of Technology.
Okay.
And they actually were collaborated by German, European countries to establish as a partnership for higher level education. And depending on your rank from 1 to 2,500, and there are 7 universities, IITs, and then there's multiple degrees, right? Computer science, electrical engineering, chemical, civil, metallurgical, biomechanical. Based on your rank, you get selected which college you're going to go to and which degree you're going to get.
Yeah. So
there is no...
Yeah. You don't have a choice.
The first rank person has a choice.
Okay.
Any degree, any university.
Okay.
Obviously, the 2,500th person has no choice at all.
They got in to this university and this is what they're going to study.
Yep.
And then, this is where they have to go.
Yeah. And then they can either redo the exam next year, or they actually have an opportunity in IITs where if you can ace all of the exams in the first semester, you get one chance to change your major in the same university.
So this like brings up to mind. I want to go back before high school, but this brings to mind like when you have so many people living in the same place, there's so much competition for the same resources. So the competition level just is like crazy high. It's got to be, right? Like for everything.
It is.
Because you think about it, that's crazy that 400,000 people apply and they knock it down to 2,500. That's crazy.
So did you were one of these 2,500?
Yeah.
How old were you when it was determined that you were going to be an engineer?
12.
That's wild.
Yeah, it is. And my rank was 1,600 some change. And that's, I mean, even if you get
24, what did you say, 400,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but when I went to IIT, just because you got a 2,000 rank or a 2,500 rank doesn't mean you're not smarter than the first rank guy. It's just like how you write the exam and how you solve for the exam. But it kind of becomes a blank slate once you go to the university because the opportunities are, unlimited. IITs by far are very culturally diverse. So first year, my freshman year, I had 2 roommates, and one person's father was a bank employee, and they were better off than we were. The other roommate, his father was a truck driver, and truck drivers are not even comparable in India to the US. I mean, the US truck drivers earn 6 figures, right? In India, truck drivers are poor people. Like they are poor people.
Mm-hmm.
So you have me from middle class, you have one person from an upper middle class, and then you have one person from a poor class.
Yeah.
And the poor guy had a better rank than both of us.
Yeah, because he worked harder.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that, but like,
there is incentives
like
and motivation.
he was like, hey, I gotta change my life or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And
wow.
Yeah. I mean, Indians are very theoretically smart people.
Yeah.
And majority of the Indians use their brain power to make a living, right? Like engineers, lawyers, doctors, software. You rarely see Indian people making a lot of money using their hands, like a tradesperson in the US or a sports person. It's not happening.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back before high school. Like, what were the other kids? I would imagine they're similar, but like, what were the other kids in your neighborhood doing? Right. So like when you were going to school, and
I'll tell you an example from when I'm 6 years old.
Okay, but let's also like give us like what was school like, right? Because it's like 7 days a week, also, right?
Not really. No.
Okay.
No, it was 5 days a week.
Okay.
Kids used to play cricket on the road or just play with other friends. Very similar, how kids play. But when I was 12 years old, after my mom passed, and my mom's brother, my uncle, he kind of saw something in me, which I kind of like feel grateful for now, looking back. Hindsight is 2020. But I never was allowed to watch TV. Actually, we did not have a TV growing up until I was 18 years old. My dad didn't even buy a TV. So they kind of sacrificed the luxury of having a TV for our studies. But I would come home.
Because he knew if he got a TV, then you would be watching it.
Yeah. We would come home from school, me and my sisters and my cousins, and they would watch TV, cartoons or Indian movies, kid-friendly movies. I was always sat in front of a computer. My uncle actually deleted. So this is Microsoft 98, MS-DOS type software, right? Operating systems. And he would delete all of the default games on the computer so I wouldn't play. And he would install programming softwares for me to learn.
Okay.
So I started programming when I was 12 years old.
So how old are you? What year would this be?
1999.
Damn.
Okay, so
I was not allowed to watch TV. I did not play games outside. I would come home from school and program.
What were you programming?
I started programming in MS-DOS.
Okay.
I would program Circle and then Hello World. Basically, it just gave me an opportunity to learn logical thinking, right? You need to have a logical thinking to program. You need to go a sequential step by step.
Okay, explain that, because I don't know anything about programming. So just break it down for me, as if I was 12 years old.
Well, you're telling the computer to do something. Like, for example, you are trying to check an array or data in an Excel spreadsheet, right? How would the computer know how to do it? So you would basically say, start with this cell and then go through all of the cells in this column. And if you don't find the answer that you're looking for, then go to the next column
and then go all the way down.
So you have to think like that to write that code. You have to tell the computer that's what you want to do.
Right.
And same thing that applies to, it can be extrapolated to solving problems in life, right?
Yeah.
If you have a logical way of thinking and you can solve for things in a sequential manner, it'll help you solve the problem in life generally. That was like the concept and motivation.
Did you know that at the time?
No, but that's what I was told and taught.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And I was 15 years old when I won the software whiz kid from my city.
Okay.
Yeah, in programming. It was, I don't know how many kids in the competition, but I won that. And then I was good at math.
Yeah.
And looking back, the type of math problems we were solving, like calculus and like, where do we use that? Fourier series transformations, hyperbolas, like
you don't use it, right?
Unless it is a very specific job, like in aeronautics,
Sure,
or in production facilities, manufacturing. Like otherwise, unless it is very specialized, you don't need that kind of a math or chemistry for that matter.
Yeah.
But that's what I was learning. Yeah.
Okay. So you didn't have a lot of like other hobbies?
Zero. I literally have none growing up.
Yeah.
I was a very awkward kid until I started going to college. And college, that's
you were awkward even within that group of people that you would spend time with?
I didn't even spend time with. I don't have any friends from high school.
Okay.
I literally don't have friends from high school.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, let's put them out. And then close that. Yeah.
You guys edit the video, right?
Yeah.
It's all right.
No, he had a bunch in his bowl, didn't he?
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
Anyway. Okay, so
I had a thought from like 3 minutes ago.
Go ahead.
Just the thought of learning logic, like logical thinking from a computer. I've never thought of that in my life.
Yeah.
Because I grew up on a farm. So I always say that's how I learned all my logic and all my practical.
That's practical and common sense.
Yeah.
You don't have common sense, practical knowledge from learning computer programming. You know how to think logically, but if you can't expand your horizons more than that, you don't know how to apply that for real life.
You're saying it's just a lot of logic.
Yeah. I mean, that's why majority of the Indians, the stereotype is they are in software. Mm-hmm. They're pretty good with computers, which I was actually. Until I decided not to be. But I actually built a software for my master's thesis. I wrote 765 pages of code in my thesis.
So what did this software do?
So my master's thesis revolved around green building certification. So USGBC, depending on what kind of requirements you can fulfill, you can get the level of certification, right? As an example, low volume toilets, material, recyclable materials, source of materials. And depending on how many criteria you can fulfill, you can have a green certified building, gold, platinum, I don't remember but you have different stakeholders in a construction, right? Like you have contractors, owners, architects, and each one has their own goals. They would want to be able to analyze which criteria can be fulfilled at what cost, and depending on what all of the stakeholders agree to would be the criteria that it would select. But the software model would take inputs independently from each of the stakeholders without them being in a room. Basically, everyone would give their preferences and list which criteria they want to see, and then the associated cost. And the model would run simulation between all scenarios and give you the optimal solution for the budget. Hey, for your budget, these are all the criteria that you can fulfill, and this is the level of certification you would get.
So it figured out all those different scenarios like that.
It's an agent-based modeling software.
What did you do with that?
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
Usually research depends on which field the research is done in, but sometimes the research is so theoretical. It's usually a couple of decades away from practicality. Usually. I mean, electrical is not, like chip manufacturing and stuff. That's not. Aeronautical, it's not. But some of the civil engineering stuff, it's very theoretical. You don't necessarily apply it to construction right away. It takes a lot of buy-in from stakeholders.
Well, and there's like a system that's like preventing it from taking place also.
Yeah.
There's like there's definitely other forces at play. Okay, so
it's kind of sad, my childhood. I mean, looking back, I would, I'm grateful for all the opportunities, but it's like there's no fun in my childhood. Like I I don't have memories of playing sports, having a lot of friends.
You were just working.
I was just studying and working all the time.
Right.
And I didn't know any better at the time. I didn't know, man, I don't want to do this or anything. I just kind of was, there are people playing. I want to play cricket.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, I have to go do this program or do some math problems.
Right.
So.
Okay, so.
Kyle, do you mind sliding your mic back just a hair?
This way?
Away from you, yeah.
It's too loud.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect.
So then your life kind of changed when you went to college?
Yes. There was instant freedom. It was in a different state. There was no parental oversight. None of the other students had. It was basically dorms.
Mm-hmm.
They had dorms for girls and dorms for boys, and we had opportunities to do sports, play for the school, and it also have a lot of clubs. You can form a book club of your liking, a movie club, a food club of kids similar to your interests.
Mm-hmm.
And I found my niche in terms of sports. I hang out with people with similar mentality, and we had access to a lot of information on the
because you guys were creating it.
partly. I mean,
you guys were literally coding it like a couple hours before.
We had a lot of resources actually, and we can research colleges in the US. We could figure out the degrees. We can look at the curriculum ahead of time, which how to excel in that. It was like amazing, like the amount.
So
of
think
freedom.
about that. Think about what you just said.
Yeah,
you were thinking about going to another college and working that system to your benefit.
Yep.
As a college kid in India.
Yeah.
Thinking about, let me research this college in the United States that I would like to go to, or maybe would like to go to.
Here's the story.
That's
right?
fucking crazy, dude. I was not researching another college when I was in college.
Well, so 2008, I was in my junior year of college. 2008 economic recession happened, and usually people from IITs get great jobs.
Mm-hmm. In India or around the world?
Around the world.
Yeah.
As an example, Sundar Pichai from Google went to IIT. Sachin Nadella from Microsoft, he went to IIT. A lot of the Indian pioneers in the US usually have an IIT as a similar background. So we were like kind of more, and then we would know about people who graduated before us going into B schools in India. So just like you have Harvard MBA, in India we have IIM, which is Indian Institute of Management, and those are like the Ivy League of business schools. And a lot of having an IIT and an IIM combination of degrees is like so sought out for. Like I have people that I went to college with that are partners in investment banking in firms in Singapore, Malaysia. There are actually a couple of directors of operations in Amazon that run a couple of these fulfillment centers that are from the same. I know one guy or two guys who graduated before me.
Yeah. And
they became, go into marketing or go into finance, go into software. They're in like big positions throughout the world, Asian countries and European countries, London.
So all that stuff was motivating you.
Yeah.
Because these people were getting jobs at like very prestigious companies in the US specifically.
Yeah. You have three choices after you graduate from IIT. One, you get a very lucrative job, either in India or abroad, and you just start working. Second option is you actually go get a business degree from IIM in India, or get a business degree in the US from Harvard, MIT Sloan, Carnegie Mellon, Yale. That's like where Indian IITians go. And the third option is get a graduate degree in the same major that you did your bachelor's in. So those are the only three options that kids that went to IIT did. There was no other, no option. And 2009, when I graduated, the recession was still pretty prevalent,
Mhm.
and we didn't get lucrative jobs as we were hoping we would in 2007. And I didn't want to go to a B school because I studied civil engineering for 4 years. I just wanted to stick to my field.
And so you got a civil engineering degree from IIT.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was the best option available for me for my rank, actually, at the time. And 2009, when I graduated, I had to research the US universities. If you're a student from local bachelor programs in the US, you can actually go visit the campuses and talk to the professors and figure out how the life is and everything. Indians always relied on what type of research they want to do based on the professor's curriculum or resume and the papers that were published, and also the ranking of the university in the US.
Mhm.
That's all I relied on. Purdue was ranked 3 in civil engineering in 2008 when I started applying. And what I wanted to do was construction, engineering and management. And I found a professor that excelled in that research. I actually have 4 published papers.
On what?
Civil engineering.
But
topics.
like what specifically?
Revolving around green building.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
See, so that's all the logic that you learned to like. I'm going to speak for a lot of Americans. Generalize, they pick like, what's the closest ski slope to this university?
Yeah,
that's probably where I'm going to go to school.
Yeah.
Or what's the weather like?
Srini would pick that now.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
He likes to ski now.
Yeah. But yeah, it's crazy to think that I wrote code. So I used to program in VBA, which is software behind Excel.
Mm-hmm.
So I would automate spreadsheets and stuff for the longest time.
This guy's a fucking spreadsheet master, dude.
Yeah.
He sent me his spreadsheets before, and I'm like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me?
And yeah,
I have to PDF them so I can read them.
It's like there's Excel jobs and non-Excel jobs. That's it, right? Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly.
Kind of, yeah.
The world runs on Excel, to be honest.
It's like a language.
Yeah.
It is. It really is.
So Visual Basic Advanced VBA is programming behind Excel. And I learned multiple languages. C, C++, which is like standard, Java, Visual Basic, Python.
When did you? At what age did you learn all these? Between like what year and what? Like at what age and what age?
18 to 24.
So now I'm curious. Like, why were you learning that stuff? I can see the benefit now, but I don't think I would have put these things together as a younger person. Why were you learning those things while you were taking a civil engineering degree? Because like I don't link. Like I think they're very different. Now they very much overlap. And now that I think about it as an adult, and like I understand how they would overlap, but like I don't know any of these things, right? Like I don't know any of these computer programs, right? And we don't have. I'm not going to say we have the same degree. I'm not going to go there. We kind of have the same degree on paper. Probably your very first and most like basic degree that you have.
It's not a comparison, honestly, but
yeah, that's.
Well,
thank you.
You shouldn't be comparing.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't say I'm good with my hands like
Sure.
how we used to be with and then Tim being a carpenter and stuff. Like I can not do that shit.
Yeah.
Like if my life depended on it, I had to dismantle a bench that I built and use it as firewood.
Because it didn't stay together.
It stayed well, but it was like my wife and my daughter didn't want to use it. So, but it was good. Anyway.
I still feel like the logic that he was saying he learned on the computer when he was young is you'd probably see the logic. This is why this Excel would be so prevalent. And I think it's probably logic that we would never see because like.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is like there would be like an extremely rare case for somebody to know programming and be studying civil engineering at the same time.
Yeah, I'm going to speak for you, so go ahead. But like, I feel like you would just see the obvious link between the two.
There is a lot of jobs, industries that rely on software. I mean, Amazon has has like an army of software engineers.
Yeah.
Developers rely on IT people. Real estate developers rely on IT people to manage their systems, process. The program management software tools, right? Like, I mean, they're all based on software, and people that have an interest in software also know that they have to keep up with the trend of the new software languages. MS-DOS was the very first operating software for Microsoft. And then it kind of evolved. And then C, C++, and Java, they're all like the basic, what we call as the foundation of programming. And then everything evolved around it. And the difference in this programming is like how you write the commands, but the steps and the sequences and the logic is still the same. It's just like different systems use different software. And obviously I haven't done any programming in like 15 years, but there is so much more software languages that have been developed so far. I mean, same thing with AI, right? Like, kind of led up to, and then it's going to lead up to. I mean, the generations and the job profiles are shifting to software based a lot. And software engineers are paid relatively more, just based on compared to a construction worker, let's say. Right? So that was like also the other incentive that majority of the Indians have is like, hey, have the software skills in your back pocket as a tool to earn more income.
Right. I'm gonna go get the dog real quick.
I'm gonna back you way up now to before college, because you said you have sisters, right?
I have two sisters, younger sisters. Yeah.
Both young. How much younger?
1.5 each. So my first sister is 1.5 years younger than me, and my youngest is 3.
Okay. So if they knew at 12 you were going to be an engineer, what about your sisters? Was their fate determined?
Their fate was determined, but not as young as 12.
Okay.
So when they were close to graduating high school, basically my dad said, for my first sister, you're going to go become an architect. And then my younger sister, when she was close to graduating high school, 3 years after me, my dad was like, you're going to go become a chartered accountant.
Okay.
Yeah, there was.
So he'll just tell them what they're going to do, and that's essentially what they're
majority
going to do.
of the Indian parents, yeah. Like it has changed, right? Like last 2 decades, things have changed, but yeah.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, like, because traditionally, a lot of wives in America or in the West, we'll say, are like would be stay-at-home wives to raise kids. Was that in India? Is that very common, or what was the?
It is.
Okay.
It is very common. So when I actually met my wife, we talked a lot on the phone before we actually met in person, and there was a lot of characteristics, personalities, and vision that matched to what I think a traditional Indian housewife or mom that I've been used to.
Okay.
And she had similar, and it's like older U.S. culture too, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you know, they would stay home, take care of the family, take care of the kids, and that's what my now wife had. So I was like, oh, that's great. It kind of worked out. So
yeah, I don't know, like when it really switched, but like I think at least when I grew up in a unique situation on the farm, but like at least when I was a kid or before that, it was like a lot of women would stay home. And
I think at some point it switched like in the late 80s.
Yeah.
You know, late 80s, like 90s.
I'm very old fashioned in my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care for this gender equality bullshit and pay equality bullshit. Like it's not true.
Yeah.
Well, some like software programming, yeah, maybe, but construction.
Yeah, you mean that like it doesn't apply
to every single thing.
Yeah,
like how they seem it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I might probably get nailed on this.
But but now we're going right back to the logic again.
Yeah,
you're just speaking logically. Right. It's not. Like,
well, it was like I mean, it's like today, right? Like there's different weights for men and women, right? And it was like, okay, like it makes sense. So like, why? There's nothing to talk about.
I mean, the old traditional way, right? Like we want to make sure our kids do better than what we did, and that has always been the motivation for each generation. And kids need their parents' love, not daycare from 6 months old.
Mm-hmm.
So if both parents are working, kids grow up outside the home for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the research or the statistics, but how they turn out compared to people who have the moms present in their life as a stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't speak. I don't know the statistics or anything, but I believe in the mothers taking care of them. I mean, it's even in the animal kingdom. There's so much we can apply the analogies from the animal kingdom. I mean, they just don't give their baby away to some other,
Yeah.
I'll tell you the first podcast we did with my mother. She said to me, and I'd never heard this before, but most of us, we were homeschooled most of our life. She said when she held her firstborn son in her arms, she knew there was no way he was putting him in school. And I was like, I never heard her say it like that. I knew she homeschooled us because she wanted to raise us and have us around. But whatever it was a feeling that she had that I don't want someone else raising this kid.
I actually told Kyle this yesterday, and the more me and my wife have been researching, and this is our personal belief.
Yep.
We're not challenging other people's opinions or perspectives, but we want to homeschool our kid because traditional schools are to manufacture workers.
Yeah, I think that's been that's well researched and documented.
I mean, especially in India,
yeah,
you're creating workers. You're not creating any entrepreneurs.
Well, if you look at take Carnegie Mellon, right? The first name is Carnegie. Well, figure out who that is.
Yeah, he didn't go to college.
Right, he didn't go to college, but he created a school so he'd have workers, right? So Andrew Carnegie, right? So so yeah, I mean, if you look at all the donations, to all the universities, it's these big companies, big corporations donate, they recruit there, they're tied, together there, right? And so it's a system that people work within. And yeah, I mean, they don't teach you to become an entrepreneur in college. That's not, I mean, there are some entrepreneur classes, right? But they don't teach you to become an entrepreneur in college.
You can be entrepreneurial in your thinking, but not practical. You can be entrepreneurial in thinking to help the company that you're working for, rather than be an entrepreneur and establish a company for yourself.
I'm going to say this. This is the second time I've said this, so I'll probably I could get made fun of this. We had a good soundbite about me saying this last time, but my thought on being homeschooled, only because you're thinking about homeschooling your daughter, I said I wouldn't trade it for anything, just like the way I grew up and what I learned. But the one thing I wish I had a little more of was socialization. So I don't know, just my opinion is a balance of good socialization, but homeschool, I don't have any kids, but when I do, that's kind of a route I think I'd want to go.
I agree. And Kyle, like I said, gave me a little bit of a your background, and we did agree to that. But also, COVID destroyed a lot of kids nowadays, especially that were denied schools and stuff, have a lot of mental issues right now. Yeah. The mental issues that kids have now has never been more prevalent than before.
Because they weren't in school. You're saying because they weren't socialized.
Yeah. Right. It affected their development abilities.
Totally. Yeah.
So, I mean, we actually have our daughter registered to go to a private school for the elementary school. Mm-hmm. But when she is old enough and she has built the foundation of the societal behaviors and stuff, we're going to do homeschooling. But again, you talk about this societal exposure, but that also leads to peer pressure, bullying, drugs, and all that stuff. So, I mean, in a way, you can argue both ways. Mm-hmm. How can you socialize and not fall prey to any of that stuff?
Well, I think the other thing is most people, it probably doesn't matter what country you're talking about, but most people are going to send their kids to public school, right? So the majority of people are going to not understand this perspective, and it's because the few people who've done something different you're not hearing that, right? Nobody's talking about it. So like there's a story of a French couple who wanted to raise their 3 kids outside of, didn't even put them in school. So they homeschooled them, but they traveled around the world. So they got a sailboat and they literally sailed for like 4 years around the world. And so then they stayed, they'd like dock somewhere and they'd stay for months, right? And they 2-3 months and then they go somewhere else. So they did this for like 4 years or whatever. And so when they were there, they're like, okay, we're going to learn about this culture and we're going to learn about this history and we're going to learn about this technology that came from this place. So they're teaching their kids. And I was like, dude, that's a fucking cool like way to learn about the world, right? And like you can learn history that way. You can learn anything. But those kids also, like, by the time they were like 10 years old, they were like, they'd travel the world and they knew a lot about culture. So like what if you compare that experience to like going to a normal elementary school, like, I don't know which one's better, but like, this one sounds way more fucking interesting.
It is. I mean, the one good thing is because I'm from India originally, she's going to go back to India quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad lived in Europe for a few years when he was working. So we have been to Europe a couple times. I wouldn't say I've ever been to Asian countries past India, but I totally agree. Like having world exposure and to different cultures, at least 2 or 3, is gonna broaden your horizon more so than like it's like frog in a pond situation, right? Like,
what's he doing?
He's just
licking his paws. Right. Yeah.
I thought he was chewing on something. Yeah. So I mean, I think the people that would argue against that's just like out of fear because they don't know what would be different, right? And so like if you were to say, well, the school system's all fucked up and it has all these negatives, right? Okay, maybe, and somebody could then counter that, right? Okay, fine, you can counter it, but like most people haven't even thought about what it would be like if we didn't do schooling, right? There's an interesting book it's about fatherhood and kind of becoming a man. And it's a very male-centric book, and it's called Iron John. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's an ancient story. It's a very old story. But the book is about a young boy who they kind of grows up from maybe like 6 to call it 18, right? Then they don't really talk about ages, but you can kind of tell throughout the book. But the whole book, because it's such an ancient story, is about how his father and his mother are home all the time. His father works out of like a shed, and he's like a blacksmith. And so his father's constantly home, and then his mother's constantly home, and they make things on their property, and then they sell and trade them around their community. They barter, right? And so the whole book is just like about, if your parents are around, what kind of experience would you have? And people don't even know about that anymore, right? Because now, well, up until maybe the 90s in the US, your fathers were always gone, right? So your fathers are never home. Your father was home, right? Because you worked and lived on a farm.
Mm-hmm.
But most people's fathers, like, they get up at 5 in the morning and 5 or 6 in the morning, and they leave at 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever, and they don't come back until 4 or 5, right? Well, I don't know about you, man, but like it only took me a few years to figure out that fucking sucks. And you come back at the end of the day and you're just like grumpy and you're tired, right? Like then so all your kids they just think like dad's an asshole. He's always fucking pissed off, right? And he's lazy. He's like never has any energy. And so if you think about that, like just half of your parents, in particular your father, is like not in the picture, right? They're not in your life. And so that blends into like this whole idea of like, what would it be like if people weren't like in the system that we're in now, right?
But
whether it's schooling or like work in that situation.
Let's go back to the Stone Age type knowledge that we know about. Hunters and gatherers.
Yeah.
Women and children were gatherers, and and men were the hunters.
Yeah.
So it has been like that for the longest that humanity has ever known.
You mean like men would go out hunting and be gone for days? Yeah.
Yeah, that
sure.
does make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like how the culture is.
Yeah.
And there is a balance. The more we read, the more we travel. I mean, you don't have to necessarily travel as widely as you can, want to or need to.
Sure.
But if you read, you get very similar experiences, right? Like you can read about cultures, you can read about how other people live, how their technology works. I mean, as an example, you guys probably, you might know this, but US, our main mode of transportation is road networks. Wherever we go on the road.
Mm-hmm.
A car is a necessity, unless you're like in a middle of a city. In India, railway network is the mode of transportation. You want to go from city to city. Trains. You don't go from city to city in a car in India. You can't. Well, now you can, but growing up, it's not. So it's like different. You can learn about it without having to go there, right? Mm-hmm. So I think like you can get the exposure in a balance. But my point, and I realized that for my daughter, and I try to be there before she goes to school. I'm home by the time she comes home from school. So she goes to preschool and she sees me every single day.
Yeah.
That she's at home. And
like you're always there when she's
I'm always there. Yeah. And she knows it. I mean, there's a bond that is different. Like she always comes to me. I mean, she's a daddy's girl. She got me wrapped in her pinky, but it's a different story. But yeah, it's if you can figure out, each individual is working towards autonomy on time.
Mm-hmm.
You can have money. You can be a billionaire, right? Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk.
Sure.
Or you can be like a panhandler. What you have the same is time.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone that can get autonomy on time, that is a success to me in my eyes. Like, if you can control what you can do on your own time, you can be a worker, an employee, or you can be a boss or an entrepreneur or anything in between, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can get that like a farmer or whatever, like autonomy on time.
Yeah.
You can't just like say, I don't want to feed the cows or the pigs, or you can't do that.
Yeah.
But if you can, I think like...
That's why Tim's not a farmer anymore.
The autonomy on time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And there is no value of money that you can assign to. I mean, you can be making $100,000 or whatever as a software employee, but if you figure out a way to control your time, that's success. You don't have to have billions or millions to consider success. So whoever achieves autonomy on time.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
Yeah, and you're trading, like, you trade that. Well, you can trade that in your career at times, right? So sometimes you trade some time for money, and vice versa, right? So you say like, I'm not going to do something because it's not worth it to me, or I'm going to do something and I'm going to do it for a couple of years or whatever, and then you do that for a few years, and you make more money, and then you figure out how to get your time back. And so you get better at something, and then you get your time back years later because you've learned and you're more efficient and more effective.
It's so difficult to dissociate from that type of thinking to actually think like, hey, what is my priorities? I mean, everyone says like, oh, family, friends, work, sports, whatever. But you got to write down and think about it. Like, what is the value that I would assign to each?
Yeah, I have a guy that I used to work with. He was like the head project manager at electrician, and him and I became really good friends. And he was telling me that he was looking at going to work for a different company, a competitor, and they were going to pay him a significant amount more money, but it was like another hour away from the house. And he did the math every day, and then he added it up for a week or a month and a year, and he's like, I'm going to spend 2 more hours away from the house every single day, And he's like, no, most people don't do that math. Cause he's like, well, he's like, is that worth it to not be around my kids and my wife? And it was a lot of money. Like it was
depends on your wife though.
Sure.
And her spending habits.
Yeah. And so he was
habits,
like, but most people would have been like, yeah, it's $45,000 more a year, which is like, which was like fucking 50% for him at the time. And he's like, no. And I was like, yeah, I mean, he's like, he had it figured out. Well, eventually those opportunities came up to him anyway, and he makes plenty of money now, but he like did the math and he assigned a dollar amount that he was like, would it be worth, and I'm going to make up the number, would it be worth $300 an hour for me to not be home? And he's like, no.
Okay, like $300 per hour, by the way, is $605,000 per year. So it's like,
whatever.
He just threw a number.
Yeah, like, whatever it was.
Come on,
like, yeah. So thank you.
I get it.
It was a lot of. It was whatever it was. It seemed like a lot, and I was like, all right, whatever.
He just did all that math in the time it took you to finish your sentence.
Right.
It was approximation, but
it made me think of when you were saying that, because I've recently, like in the last 4 or 5 months, hired an employee for my company, and I would think that this cost me a little bit more money now having an employee, and then I'm like, actually I'm buying myself so much time, and it's like I could go do it myself, and then there wouldn't be that expense, but I have so much more free time now. So now I have my time back, and my sleep schedule is so much better. I go to bed when I want to go to bed. I wake up when I want to wake up. Instead of, it's a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Like really speaks what you're saying about time.
The other thing that I started thinking more and more about and reflecting on my life journey and stuff, you got to have that creative thinking to think outside the box and trying to figure out your priorities. I mean, you need to have an opportunity to start thinking that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also hard work and opportunities and God's blessing. If people, whoever don't believe in God or whatever, all those three, I mean, you can call it the energy in the universe or fate, destiny, whatever. If none of those three things happen together,
if you're missing one of them,
you're not gonna make it in anything you want.
I think that's so true. And even if you're not religious at all and you want to call it luck, but there's
luck,
something,
there's something out there.
Yeah,
it's
for everybody that has to.
Yeah,
I think it was back to.
But I think the key distinction is that like if you're missing one of them at any moment in time, if you're missing one of them, you're right. Like your odds are like bad.
You were saying you have to like sit down and think out your priorities. Like, is that something you did or have done recently?
Yeah. Well, recently in the sense like last couple of years, started to figure out like, because we are so in such a fast-paced world, right? Like we're trying to go up the career ladder, make more money, have a lifestyle, but what is truly important? Like we never really pause and say, what do I want to be known for? Right? Like, do I want to be known for like a guy that does good construction? What is that legacy to my family? Like, who is going to remember? Like, so I'm trying to, I don't know if it is spiritual, but it's like more in the line of what's my purpose and who am I? Like, how do I describe myself? Like, what am I? I've been thinking more and more, and I have not found the answers. Right? I want to be a good dad to my daughter, give her the opportunities and the tools to be able to live her own life how she chooses without worries, and take care of my wife and my immediate family. But that's everyone has similar thoughts, but what is the purpose? So it's like more trying to be, I guess, like spiritual, trying to figure it out, like, because there's also, when you read a lot of books and stuff, you also come across where your second life begins when you know your first life was about to end.
What book was that?
I don't remember. I'm not good at remembering books like that.
I've heard something like that along those lines.
Say that again.
If you're about to die,
and
then you come back, like, you know, from something catastrophic, that's when your second life begins. And I think, like, when I actually got into a very bad wreck, mainly my fault, on an interstate, totaled my truck. And in that moment, life flashed. And by grace of God, I did not even have soreness in my body. Forget about scratches. I just walked up and left. I went to therapy about figuring out what made me get into that incident. But I think starting then, I started to think more about, like, it would have ended my life. And, you know, okay, so what do I want to do with my life? I think it started then, like 2 years ago. And that's when it started, like, okay, what do
he was driving like he was in Mumbai.
Yeah. Road rage incident, but
he was in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
I think a friend of ours, Bailey, just did this with us. When she was talking about values. Yeah. I think she said something along those lines, is that people don't really like sit down and write down what do you value and why are you doing this. And
journaling is a huge important tool. If people can write down their emotions, write down their thoughts, write down the top 20 things you want to do and cross out the bottom 17. You know, and you can do the same thing for what's your purpose.
How long have you been doing those kinds of things?
Like I said, like, from that accident kind of changed my perspective a lot.
But previous to that, you never kind of wrote your goals down.
Yeah. Well, I had like short-term and long-term goals. I think I might have told you this. Like, I always had a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, and 10 year goal. And 1 year was like a very quick bump in salary or a title. 3 years was like a big career move. 5 years, you know, it's on the same lines, but never about that. Those goals were never.
They were all about your
personal.
career.
Yeah, it was all about career. Like, so last 2 years, right, I started thinking about personal goals too, right? Fitness journey. I've been the strongest that I have been in my entire life right now. And I started doing more and more activities to make sure I'm in a good physical form when I'm older. I mean, people who work hard, like, you know, farmers or, you know, laborers, they do hard work and they actually, well, I don't know about the research and the statistics, but they are not frail when they get older. They retain some sort of their
muscle and bone structure.
And there is a research that I have done where the more fitness you do, lifestyle you maintain, as you get older, the muscle mass decreases, the bone density decreases. That's why people who have never been into fitness, whenever they break or something, there's fractures and it gets tough, ligaments and muscles get kind of wore out. I want to avoid that.
Yeah. There's some really interesting research of, you look at like a 65-year-old person who's relatively sedentary, and you look at like a 65-year-old person that who does triathletes.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
And I'm not talking about their body.
Yeah.
Their brain. Yeah. They do brain scans. The fucking brains don't even look even close to the same.
There's a lot of great dead cells in, like, a sedentary life, like lifestyles per person. Yep.
I know Peter Attia's quote is, people don't get old and stop moving. They stop moving and get old.
Yes.
And it's like, you'll stay young if you stay active.
True that.
Yeah. There's a guy, I got invited to a dinner like last year, like right around this time. Like a friend was putting on
720.
No, right around this time last year. So
I was messing with you.
Yeah. So they were putting on like a dinner that they wanted to turn into like an event and a business. And so they were doing a test. So it was at this ranch out in Big Timber, about an hour and 15 minutes away. And so it was cool. We got to like kind of test out the food, and the owners of the ranch were there. And this was like the husband and wife were in their 80s. First off, they didn't look like they were in their 80s. They looked like they were like young 70s, right? And I'm talking to the man, and he's like, yeah, I I was like, you look, we're talking about health and fitness, and like, you look great. He's like, yeah, I run all over this ranch. And I was like, oh, he's like, yeah, like I run all these trails. And he goes, yeah, it was 3 years ago. He's like, I ran the Ridge Run in Bozeman. It's a 26-mile trail run. From you start at the top of the mountain, you run the entire ridge, right, all the way down back to Bozeman. It's like just over 26 miles. And I'm like, this is an 80-something-year-old man, and he just did it a couple of years ago. There are people in their 20s that would quit, right? That couldn't do it. And I'm like, this guy's a fucking animal. It's crazy. So, I mean, you can stay fit for a really long time. You just have to really work at it.
Yeah, I think the bone density, just like lifting some weights.
Yeah.
Because your bones will, like, you lose bone mass if you don't.
Yeah.
Bone mass and muscle mass as you get older. I mean, think about it, you fade away when you die. Right? So.
And I think your body's just intelligent. Like, oh, you're gonna keep using me, so I need to stay.
That's exactly
like it's intelligence.
Yeah.
Oh, we're just gonna wither away because it's non-use.
Yep.
Yeah, if you guys haven't researched him at all, you should. There's a guy who was the founder and CEO of Bally's Total Fitness. It's like there's like a fitness club that I think started in LA, and it was kind of went all over the country in the 80s and 90s and whatever. And it got bought out or something in early 2000s or whatever. His name is Don Wildman, and Don has crazy stories of being fit in his late 80s, and he's doing hella snowboarding, right? So he's jumping out of a freaking helicopter in his 80s and snowboarding down mountains. I'm like, this guy's crazy.
Heli skiing.
Yeah.
I mean, even like from my own personal life, like my dad versus the people that I play racquetball with, like racket sports are like a lifelong sport. The people that I play racquetball with are the same age as my dad. My dad cannot play.
He's not in good shape.
He led a sedentary lifestyle.
Yeah.
So compared to the other people that you see, no. But that's like the case for majority of the Indian older folks. Yeah. Majority of them.
Yeah, I mean, majority of, I think, all older folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to circle way back because there's something I wanted to ask you. Your sisters, so you said that your dad essentially told them what their occupation was going to be. So you said they're both married now?
Yeah.
Are they both in that occupation?
Yes, actually, okay. Yes. Both of them work.
And they both have kids?
Yes.
Okay. I was just curious how that turned out, and if they work, if they raise kids full time, or what.
Yeah, my first sister, she lives in Portland. During the formative years, for the first 3-4 years of my niece's life, she stayed at home, took care of her. But a year and a half ago, my niece is like 6 now. So for the last 2 years, she started practicing architecture more actively. She works.
I thought you were talking about your niece for a second.
No. My sister. She works from home, and she is involved in a lot of extracurricular activities. She sits on the board with the school. She is a member of the Telugu Portland Association. Telugu is the language that I speak, mother tongue. And she keeps herself extremely busy. Like, she has a great social network, a lot of friends, a lot of contacts. My younger sister, she works for Ernst & Young, the top 4 audit firms in the world, in Dubai. And she takes care of my nephew. And he goes to school, and she's there when he comes back. So it's like, she works from home 3 days a week. So, I mean, they're great balancers, but I don't necessarily agree that's like the way you raise kids, but Yeah,
and then if you tell somebody else how to raise their kids, that's like means for the pretty big argument.
Oh, yeah. So I won't,
Yeah. Huh, all right. That was it. I was just curious if they abandoned that or went full in.
Actually, my younger sister makes more than my younger brother-in-law. And that's like a very in an egoistic circumstances there, but
I almost thought when you said that, because I think at least for a lot of folks in the West, there's almost like paralysis by like analysis, because there's so many decisions to make. There's probably some ease in having that decision made for you, where you can just get to work because you're not stuck just thinking, what do I do? What do I want to do with my life? And there's so many options that it's
the other.
I guess that you're also like, can you imagine? I guess this is the first time I'm thinking about this actually, but think how much time is wasted by not making a decision, and then you're not fucking getting good at anything, right? Like you knew at a young age, and so that you started working at it, right? By the time you got out of college, you knew more than anybody.
I mean, as an example, my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, he didn't know what he wanted to do. So after the first year in college, he changed majors from mechanics to computer science, I guess. So he'd added one more year. So it's like a year wasted. It's like, and a lot of Americans do that. I mean, a lot of Indians do that too now. Like, oh, I want to travel the world to see what I want to do. I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it always works out, right? Yeah. Or that it's always a bad thing. What I can see is that if you go to college for 4 years and you still don't know what you want to do, right? Like that seems kind of dumb. It's like, and how much money have you spent, right? So it's like, fine, maybe you do kind of a blend of what we just talked about. It was like, do both. Don't go to college right away. Fucking figure something else out for 2 years and then go to college, right? Once you've figured out what you want to do, maybe go travel a little bit and become an adult and learn more about the world or something like that. Or go out in the field, like, and go work somewhere and mess around with a few jobs for a little bit, find out what you want to do, then go back to college.
The downside is, though, you said your childhood wasn't any fun because you were just studying. So it's like, I don't know which is.
But again, like with hindsight, right? Okay, I mean, it was sad, but I am much better off than my peers.
Yeah.
Same logic, right? I worked for 12 years in a career, and then I used to travel a lot, and then decided I don't want to travel anymore. But I also wanted to have a career trajectory and keep moving forward, and then not travel. So I actually started doing my MBA a few years ago, and I got my MBA. So it's like a sequential step. Instead of just doing it immediately just because you want a degree, rather than using it as a tool to get what you want. That made sense. And, so that's what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think the way that you got your MBA made a lot of sense. It's like you worked for 12 years.
Yeah.
You knew the business inside and out. And then you went and got your MBA because you're like, I fucking know how to do this and I know how to apply this to real life. Yeah. Versus a lot of people get their MBA like they got their bachelor's degree. The next year they go get their MBA. Mm-hmm. You're like, you haven't even worked.
Yep.
Like that doesn't, to me, that doesn't make any sense.
It's back to the logic. Your logic is astounding.
MBA, yeah.
You learned it so young, and it's really.
Well, sometimes he's a little too rigid with his logic too.
I am,
but
yeah, there's no gray. It's only black and white.
Well, because I mean, you've learned it now. You're better, a lot better now.
Yeah, it's binary coding, 0 and 1s.
Srini is outspoken, and when he will question you on your own logic, many times, and he'll be like, and then he will belittle you and say, that doesn't fucking make sense, right? Yes, I know it doesn't make sense, but we still need to do this. It's fucking stupid, right?
There have been a lot of instances, and that it is a reputation that I carried for a long time. The way I talk to people and ask them questions logically to end up coming to a result
it makes people very uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable, and will demean them.
It makes people who can't answer the question very uncomfortable. It definitely makes people who don't like confrontation, they're screwed. They're absolutely screwed. But it works in your favor. I would say probably 80% of the time it works in your favor, because then people won't come to you with bullshit anymore. And that, in my opinion, that goes back to the time.
Yeah.
Because people don't waste your time.
And I'm going to try to start applying this more and more.
Yeah.
It sounds like a great idea.
They say like people who are disagreeable do better in life, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't allow people to give them shit, right? It's like, no. Don't come to me with that bullshit. Like, I'm not going to accept it. And so people learn very quickly that Srini won't take any shit.
I think Kyle just said you're outspoken. You said a lot of people from your culture are usually non-confrontational. So where did this come from?
Like I said, like it was just when you're talking sheer numbers compared to the US and India, right? Like you're 1.3 billion people. There's a lot of people like me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, but when you have a smaller concentration of people in US that are from India and you look at the statistics, then I usually don't fall under the stereotypical. I mean, I tell people that I network with stories about me that will make them remember me. That's like a trick. When you meet people, you want them to remember you more so than you remembering them, because that's how opportunities come by. But so I tell them stories about my life that are factual, true. An example being, the difference in personalities, right? I'm a little bit bigger than an average Indian, size-wise, height-wise, and everything. And my interests, I love my guns. I drive a truck. I wear cowboy boots.
He works in construction.
Yeah, I works in construction. And I like hanging out with white people or any other non-Indian.
You're not a fucking Indian.
No, I don't hang with, I hang with non-Indians, barbecues, boating and stuff. I refuse to hang with Indian people. A lot of the Indian people that I know of that maybe I'm not that.
You don't refuse to, you just.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I'm trying to be polite about it. I don't want to hang with Indians.
Just in general, because you're stereotyping Indians, and you're saying most of them aren't like, don't like to do the shit that you like to do. Yeah.
You said your wife is white?
Yeah.
Okay. She's from
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, redneck American.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So where do you think, like, what do you attribute this? Because if you are more outspoken, that takes some balls. Where do you attribute that coming from?
I honestly never thought about it.
I have a hunch.
Yeah.
Well, so I think this is probably, you tell me if it's true. So you came out of college like very accomplished, right? And then you went into a construction business where you understood what all the engineers were actually doing. I actually
have a story.
Okay.
So my first project ever in corporate world on a decommissioned nuclear plant, there was this white as it can be redneck manager.
Did he have a mullet?
Trying to think. No, but he had a goatee. but
even better.
I wasn't as outspoken then, but I wouldn't curse or anything. And one day he was like,
he curses now.
Cursing is like a rite of passage. And he's like, I'm not letting you go home. He literally blocked the trailer door. So you need to curse before you can go home today. And I was like, no, sir. Like, that's how people in India are, like, sir, madam. Mm-hmm. We don't call anyone in India by first name, usually. No teachers, no workers. You call them sir or madam. And that's how I grew up. So I was like, sir, please don't do this. I was like,
oh my God.
I pled with him for 5 minutes. And then I was like, all right, I want to go home. So I said, get the fuck out of my way, motherfucker. And I was like, and he's like, there you go. You're welcome. And then he just like, and then
that is so funny.
And then after that, it was just like, looking back.
What's his name?
Mac Badowski.
Shout out to Mac.
He's a Polish dude. Yeah.
Well, what I'm getting at is so you went into a construction field, but you understood all the engineering behind it, right? So I would imagine that you questioned a lot of the engineering, and then you also questioned some of the. This happens a lot. I mean, I think the business is at least 50% inefficient because of these things. Is somebody tells you, well, that's not the way it's done. And that's usually what that usually means is I don't want to do it the way you want me to do it. Or it's going to take me, I don't want to do it right now. And so I'll do it next week. Right. So I would imagine you had a lot of these confrontations with the engineers, right? Civil engineers, structural engineer, but then also like even from your coding background, when people say, oh, like, yeah, I could do it. Like, I'll figure it out and I'll do it next week. And you're like, no, I need this done. Like, I need this done like today, tomorrow. Like this needs to be done by tomorrow at noon. That brings up a confrontation. And then you could explain to them why they could accomplish what you were asking them. I would imagine that there was a lot of confrontation like that where other people that are right out of college in your same position didn't have the understanding of how something actually worked, and were probably their inexperience didn't give them the confidence to question it, so therefore it never got questioned, right?
Yeah.
Where like for me, it probably took me years to question some of those things where you were like, no, I'm going to question it like the day I got out of college.
Well, so I really have to think and contemplate and reflect on what was the trigger for me to be outspoken about. But I always wanted to make something out of myself. And I did not want people to stop me. And I might not have had lofty goals or anything, but I just didn't want normal, mundane people to come in my way. And I used to tell that to the teams when I used to manage them. I was like, get out of my,
get out of my way.
When I ask you questions, tell me what I want to hear and then get out of my way, because I'll drag you along.
Really what you wanted to do is tell you the truth.
Yeah.
That's what you meant.
Yeah,
like not necessarily one
facts.
Because you don't like people to tell you what you want to hear. You want to hear the truth.
Yeah, truth. Yeah.
That's right.
And truth hurts majority of the time. And but yeah, I really have to reflect like what triggered. But college, yeah. I was actually I don't say this to too many people because I don't have much memories, but I used to be a fat kid.
Okay.
In like middle school. And I was bullied for my weight. I never really played in sports. Obviously, I was like
studying all the
time. But I just woke up one day and decided not to be bullied. And yeah, I don't know. I really have to reflect. It's one thing I can't just answer simply. But, I just didn't want to be a stereotypical person.
Well, good for you because you're inspiring now.
I don't know about inspiration, but
yeah, because so you must have changed your demeanor a lot from those years at Grey Corps.
Yeah,
right. Like you became like from starting Grey Corps to being done at Grey Corps, you're probably a completely different person.
I actually was in college. Actually,
okay,
yeah, I was actually in college. I mean, I remember
your demeanor changed.
Oh yeah, like yeah. I remember one of my friends
must got laid or something.
It's a taboo in India, but yes, I had a girlfriend a semester in college.
Nice.
Every semester?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Nice work.
I used to play water polo, which is very, not a regular sport in India. And yeah, a lot of stamina, a lot of playing with balls. So anyway, but yeah, true story. Yeah. I was a player.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
That's what changed. We just hit it. We just hit the nail on the head.
All right. But, so then you became cocky.
I was
specifically cocky.
I was cocky. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually remember my friend, a couple of my best friends, warning me on my senior year before I came to the US. Like, you got to reduce your temper and all that stuff because people are gonna pop you. The way I used to have my temper and stuff. But yeah,
it's probably. I mean, but if you think about it, all those attributes are so valuable if you're in the construction industry. It's like almost mandatory to get anywhere.
Yeah, otherwise you get run over.
Oh yeah.
You just get walked on, right? Like if you can't stand up for yourself and you can't think logically and you can't And the business is complex. It's very complex. You ultimately get, I think you get to a point where you can simplify it all, but there's so many factors happening all at the same time, right? And if you can't like cut through the bullshit, you just get overwhelmed and you get lost in literally like lost in the shuffle. It's because there's, you think there's 65 subcontractors on site, and they're all working at all different, all over the place, and so you have to be able to work through the bullshit and see through it all.
Okay, so you said you had an accident 2 years ago. So what's changed since then?
I am more appreciative of people around me. I'm grateful for the things I have. I give my thanks to God rather than just asking God for stuff. I appreciate the time I like to spend with my family. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot that changed, honestly. Like, I'm a better driver. Not that I was, but I was just, dissipating the anger or very quickly and letting my emotions go or reduce, especially when I'm driving or in even situations like even my the work that I do as a real estate developer now, kind of be deliberate about what you want to do, contemplate, reflect, think before you make a decision, and implement that logic in all of my life circumstances. Basically, think about it. Think about a bigger picture, right? We are always like looking at the details, but look at it from a macro level. Like, how is it going to impact a couple of years from now, maybe even 10 years from now? Look from different people's perspectives. The other thing I also have learned is, there is this golden saying that you say, treat people how they want, how you want to be treated. But then I learned there is another, call it a platinum saying or whatever, treat people how they want to be treated, right? I take criticism very well. You can be very blunt and say, Srini, I don't like what you fucking said. You need to change something about it. You're a fucking dick. I mean, you can call me names or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'll see the positive in it. I'll try to take what I can improve to be better tomorrow than I am today, every single day. Some people can't take that criticism. People don't want to be told the truth in a blunt way. So here I am thinking like, hey, I take criticism well. So
everybody else, yeah, I'm going to talk to everybody else the way I would want to be treated.
But that's the analogy, right? Like, you may not take criticism the same way I would take. So I have to give you criticism the way you would like it. So it basically means treating you the way you want to be treated rather than like treat you how I want to be treated, right? So it's like a one step above, and you have to put yourself in their shoes, perspective. What is motivating them? What is making them tick? You have to understand the person before you can act upon how you want to relay the message or information.
Yeah, have some empathy.
Yeah,
one step. Yeah.
EQ is such a skill that is lacking in a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a massive difference for you from a couple of years ago.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I would not care about you more so than like what you need to be doing at work. But again, like, it's a learning process.
Yeah. When you said like thanks to God, what's the predominant religion in India?
Hinduism.
Okay. Yeah. So do you practice that?
Yes. Okay. I'm a Hindu. My wife grew up as a Roman Catholic. But
God bless you.
Yeah. But she's not a practicing Roman Catholic, but we do go to church every Sunday.
Okay.
We do want to introduce my daughter to both of our religions.
What kind of a church do you go to?
A non-denominational.
Okay.
Yeah. And we haven't introduced my daughter to Hinduism yet, because we don't want to confuse her with, I haven't even taught her Telugu, the language that I grew up talking. I just want her to learn one thing, and then when she is able and willing to learn and pays more attention, has a much better listening span, introduce it to her slowly so she appreciates that rather than like have it thrust upon her.
Yeah. What about Hinduism? Is there anything that specific that sticks out about it, or is?
Even Bible talks about Hinduism being the earlier religion.
Okay.
Yeah. And Asian religions. I respect all religions. I believe in a higher power. You can call it God, Christ. I mean, I believe in a Hindu God that I grew up in. I also believe in Christ. I believe in power of prayer, genuine, truthful prayer. Ask and you will be handed. Pray to God about others, not just for yourself all the time. That's one thing that I take away from the Bible teachings and stuff is like, hey, let's pray for other people and to end their suffering or help them through their journey. And if you do a genuine prayer, I have had instances where it kind of showed, like, it might not be because of that, but I told
you that I went to church as a kid, like non-denominational, like recently for whatever reason. I think from like podcasts I'd heard it. I started doing that in the morning. There's something to it.
Yeah.
To like really just being thankful and like thinking of everyone you care about, wishing them well, but like saying it, like there's something to it. I mean, maybe it's bullshit, but it works for me, and I think obviously a lot of people.
Yeah. You just have to be willing to do it the extra distance rather than get lost in the rat race, I call.
Yeah. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
I'm sorry. I was chuckling because I was thinking to myself, like if anybody were to ever try to put you into a box, I don't know what fucking box they would put you in.
Yeah.
Because you're like a gun-toting, like fucking
dark Indian, not a feathered Indian.
He's Hindu, but he also believes in Christ. It's like there's like, it's interesting, right? Like your life is so dynamic, right? Like I don't know how else to describe it.
And I take advantage of that when I tell this to people, like, will you ever forget this one brown Indian you have come across? Why,
That is slightly larger than the other Indians.
Yeah.
Slightly above average.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like I use it to advantage. I mean, you're
the only fucking Indian in Boise.
In the real estate business.
Yeah,
because
good.
You have a ton of people in Micron that are software engineers, actually.
Yeah.
But
sure.
I'm figuring out things as I go.
Yeah.
So that's where you and your daughter and your wife are?
Yeah, Boise, Idaho. Well, in Idaho.
Just outside of Boise.
Just outside of Boise, yeah.
How old's your daughter?
She turned 4 last month.
Are you have more kids or no?
We had difficulty conceiving her, so she's an IVF baby, and we have a couple more embryos remaining. So,
cool.
But we are trying. The stars have to align still.
Yeah. You were telling us about this before outside. Can you tell us what you told us about Dubai?
It's not as glamorous as it made to appear on TV, media, or whatever. It's majority of the places, right? Like some touristy areas rely on tourism, but there is a life behind it. And especially in Dubai, there's a lot of migrants from Asian countries, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. There is no taxes in Dubai. So whatever money you make, you send it back to India or wherever you're from. A lot of poor people, a lot of workers. And
those people support the industries there in Dubai.
Yeah. I mean,
like they're in the background.
If you ever go to Dubai, starting from the airport all the way to the outside, you would come across Indians, Asians. Well, Asians in the sense, not the East Asians like Chinese, Japanese, Vietnamese. No, mainly the Southeast Asia, India, and surrounding countries. You will see a lot of them, mainly from the lower class of people trying to make a living and send money back, that run the city, basically, help support it.
They run the city, but they probably don't get credit for it.
No.
They're like lower class people that are doing laborious jobs.
It's like a traditional kings and servants and peasants type thing, right? Like you have a king and takes care of his own subjects, but then you also have the peasants, and it's glamorous when you go to touristy places. And it's not so glamorous when you go to residential areas where those people live. So, it's not what it looks like.
What were you saying about the locals and the license plates?
Yeah, so I mean, you probably have seen a lot of stories, reels, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, about the license plates. I mean, the license plates usually cost more than the car sometimes. The single digit, the 5, 7, 1, the buy, like people are somehow crazy about those license plates. And you can't be mean to locals or citizens of Dubai, or because the king takes care of them.
When you say mean to them, what do you mean by that?
Like, for example, like if you're driving in the US, you get pissed off,
you flip somebody off.
You don't want to do that in Dubai
because they'll put the cops on you or something.
Yeah, I mean, in Dubai there are cameras everywhere. You go fast, you're gonna get a ticket on your on your phone.
Yeah, that's like how it is in Singapore.
Yeah, like literally, like you wouldn't even know where the cameras are, but the Dubai people are watching everyone all the time. It's literally like
they're like under surveillance.
Oh yeah,
that's how it is in Singapore. Like there's cameras everywhere in Singapore, and so there's a joke around like people in Singapore that like if they're like there hasn't been a high speed chase in Singapore in like a long time, 10 years or something, because they're like you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like they know exactly when you were speeding. They tracked your car and they know exactly where your car's at, and like they're gonna block the road and pull you over.
It's crazy. I mean, it's same thing, right? Like if I, as an immigrant, and I'm not a citizen, I'm not a green card holder, let's say, and I get into a fight with you, you are a U.S. citizen. Who is the government going to take the side of?
Sure.
They might investigate the details later, but you are going to have your home turf advantage. And same concept, similar concept, but the king takes care of his own people first. All of the others are workers. Like you could be earning millions of dollars, but you're still a worker. You can be friends with locals. You can go to restaurants and shopping with locals. I mean, you just can't be. I don't know if there's crime or not in Dubai, to be honest. I asked that with my sister, and she's like, "Yeah, not that much. There might be a little bit, but you always get caught. You don't want to get trouble." And then we always hear these horror stories about jail systems where
that's interesting, right? So I would imagine people are they're very obedient, right? Because you can get caught for anything, right? So then you get into this mindset like I'm always being watched. So they're probably very, very obedient.
The residential areas that I have traveled to in Dubai, I haven't even seen infraction. Like it's always like, and I would notice the cameras once in a while, but the malls, like they're all glamorous. You have the one mall in Dubai, right next to Burj Khalifa. They have a Louis Vuitton, they have a Rolex, they have a Patek Philippe, which is watch brands, like high-end watch brands, like Hublot. I mean, I'm talking Patek Philippe and Richard Mille.
I don't know what these are.
These watches, starting prices are like $75,000 to $200,000 starting, and they're all there in showrooms and stuff. So it's like commercial areas where there is tourism. They obviously require to maintain certain standards. The marketability, right? Like the look. But it's not the same thing in residential areas,
right?
Especially for non-citizens. Yeah.
You go there to visit your sister?
Yeah, I went to visit my sister, see my nephew this year, actually.
Nice.
I've been to Qatar before. I don't have like too much of an opinion as much as I do in Dubai in terms of like what I've learned. But Middle Eastern countries are notorious for controlling the media. Same thing for Asian countries too, right? Like China, Japan. You don't get too much out of the countries on what's going on there. As much as we broadcast what's happening in the US to the entire world. Like, hey, look at my.
It's almost laundry. Like it's almost the opposite strategy, right? Like US is exporting everything that's US to the rest of the world, right? That's kind of like our like method, if you will, or our strategy of like we're gonna tell
It's not a strategy.
Well, I don't know. I
think US is a bully in the world,
right? Yeah. And then there's these other countries like, we're not telling you anything about what's going on here.
Yeah. Except, I mean, we get what they want us to think is going on, a curated version of what's going on there.
Yeah.
Okay, what about, so you said just the last 2 years is when things changed, but you said you've been doing a lot of races. How long have you been doing that?
Since 2011. I've done like 20, 25-ish 5Ks, about the same 10Ks. Today is gonna, I mean, even though it's a Spartan beast with obstacles, it's still a half marathon. So I've done like 15 half marathons, a few triathlons, but I like collecting medals, finisher medals. I don't have to be like placed in the ranking system, but it's a hobby.
Don't you need, do you have a garage or anything? You were saying you have to hang them all in the closet or something?
My wife doesn't like them to be publicly displayed just because there's too many. It looks just not good. So I hang them behind my closet door. There's just too many to count.
You still have them all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually made a display, and then my wife looked at it one day. I actually hung it up. The nails are still in the wall. She's like, take it down. Fuck that. No. Especially in the living room.
Yeah, you should put it in the garage or something.
You sound like you're kind of a redneck. Why don't you take one of my ideas and like weld one into a belt buckle, and then you can wear it around?
Yeah, well, which one?
I don't know.
Choose your favorite
is the most important one.
No.
Or just do a bunch of them. Turn them all into buckles and wear them.
Yeah, I guess you could, and you switch the buckle out.
Okay, there is a guy. There is a teenager.
He kind of likes that idea.
No, I don't.
You should do it.
No, there is actually a teenager that I never spoken to.
Dude, people would remember you. Hey, that Indian guy with the fucking belt buckle.
I don't need to look like a...
You could just shape the goatee and put the belt buckle. You'll sell a lot of real estate.
This guy literally has like keys, chains hanging out.
Who's this guy?
Like a teenager that goes to church.
Okay.
Every time I see him, he has like a bunch of keys, like chains,
like keys to open shit.
Like stuff.
Like, what the fuck?
Carabiners. Like he's like, and I look at him in my mind. I always like, what an idiot. He looks like a Jigglypuff, like with all his like jiggly keys and stuff. I'm like, that's so stupid. Like, you are a fucking moron. Yeah, he literally looks like a dumbass with all that shit. It's not for me.
Do you think he's outspoken?
Yeah, but I completely agree. Because I'm like, I don't want to have like almost nothing in my pockets or anything. I just hate like
minimalism. I go for minimalism.
Like the amount of shit, like the less the better.
Yeah.
Oh, you look at his garage, Kyle's garage. There is stuff everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You come to my garage, you take the car out. Shit, there's nothing.
You should have all your medals.
Well, there's a little bit stuff, but not anywhere close to what usual people have.
Yeah.
Like I even tell my wife, if I buy...
That's a good strategy because I think possessions just like they end up weighing you down.
Yeah. It's like I threw my shoes out after the racing today. I don't want to keep them. Like if I buy one pair, I need to throw something out.
That's a good strategy.
Yeah. Like if I buy a jeans, I have to get rid of one jeans because I don't have a need to buy a jeans. But if I am buying, then I don't need something else. Same thing with t-shirts. That's what I do. Yeah.
That's smart.
It is smart.
So this is too much clutter, right? It's just weighs you down. Like I don't like greeting cards. My wife loves it. I give to her, but I don't want anything from her. It's just like, when am I going to see them again?
So you read the card and you throw it away.
I don't let her give it to me. I was like, hey, just tell me what you think, and then I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Like,
because you're going to throw away the greeting card.
Well, you store them like, okay, you get one for your birthday, one for your Father's Day, and then like for the last 10 years, you're gonna have like 20 cards. Where are you gonna place them? And then like every year it's gonna add up. Now my daughter is there, so I'm gonna get Father's Day, Valentine's Day, shit day. It's like fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Like it's okay. I'm sorry, but like Father's Day and Mother's Day, appreciate your father and mother every single day of a year, not just fucking one day.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, that's how I grew up. In it, there is no there was no concept of Easter Bunny shit, Santa shit, and Halloween shit, Father's Day, Mother's Day concepts in India.
Yeah, so you guys wouldn't celebrate Christmas.
Well, we didn't, but Christmas was there.
Yeah.
But Halloween, Easter, no, none of the shit. Thanksgiving, no. Like, why do you have to celebrate?
You had different kinds of holidays.
We had like religious holidays. Okay. Again, like you can argue all this is like contentious topics and all that stuff, but it's like I am of the strong opinion that like Thanksgiving, be thankful to your parents and your friends whenever possible. Why do you have to select a day?
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't make sense to me. Like I did not grow up with that concept, I
always thought that about Valentine's Day.
Yeah, oh, that's another fucking bullshit thing. That's fucking stupid.
I'm with you, Srini.
It's fucking stupid. All this holiday bullshit.
Yeah.
And talking about bullshit. Yeah, never mind.
What do you got? I want to hear it.
Yeah. Nobody's gonna listen to this.
High school graduation shit.
Oh yeah, we talked about this earlier.
Yeah, it's like
you graduated. Great job. You fucking graduated high school. You and everybody else.
Yeah, the other thing is quinceañera. We have something similar in India. Like, okay, you started your period. Shut the fuck up. Like, why do you have to advertise to the entire world? Like, that's what it is. Coming of age.
Yeah, right.
On Friday, me and a buddy were having lunch. We're at a burger place, having burgers, and this kid and his dad are next to us. He goes, "I'm going to get so-and-so." He goes, "You can get whatever you want, son. You just graduated high school."
I know.
Like, I chuckled to myself. I'm like, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I mean, growing up, we would go out to eat one time per year on your birthday. That's it. And so, I mean, we had my sister, so we go 3 or 4 times a year. That's it. Like, there's no eating out multiple times like how we do nowadays.
Yeah. Well, as we're having this conversation, I was thinking about like your level of, I would say, endurance, like mental endurance, is extremely high, right? Because of the way you grew up, right? And so some people will, they can focus on a task for a certain amount of time, and then at the 6-hour mark, they're tired, right? And they want to give up, right? But like all kind of looped into this like mental endurance thing is like, like it doesn't matter what holiday it is. It's like, I have to do this. It needs to get done, right? So I don't know. I just think about, you have a super high level of endurance that I think most people don't understand. And I think it has a lot to do with your background, right? Where you went to college and the competition level. Yeah.
Circumstances for the entire life. Like everyone's journey is different, right? And their journey defines how they become, how they react, and how they come out of it. So life circumstances. Depends on the journey.
Really high tolerance or stamina and really low tolerance for bullshit and stupid things.
I'm not that well. I wouldn't. I've gotten a little bit softer, not that much to make a difference.
Yeah,
I'm like the engineers, like he says, like that's who I mean, engineers, architects, and then contractors, tenants. It's the same stuff. Like just don't waste time.
Right.
Like move on quickly.
So if you
or just be honest with me and say, hey, I'm not going to do this for another 2 weeks.
Oh yeah.
Right. And just to tell me up front, don't lie to me and tell me that this story about why you're not going to get it done for 2 more weeks. Oh, yeah. Just tell me that you're not going to get it done for 2 weeks, and I'll live with that.
Oh, that's
yeah.
You were saying something, Tim?
Oh, I was just going to ask you. So you spent a majority or most of your life in India. What's like the biggest? It's a very general, broad question, but what's like something you noticed that's just a big stark difference between there and here that is good or bad or you can't stand? Just like culturally or overall.
Participation trophies for everything. Like when I was in school, if you didn't get the first rank, there's no celebration for you. Like,
there's no second, third,
there's
fourth place.
I mean, there is second, third, and fourth, but I'm like, yeah,
but nobody cares about it.
Nobody cares about it. Like, oh, you didn't get,
nobody would brag about it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like, oh, all it mattered was you finished it. Like, oh, here's a participation trophy. Like, fuck that. No, that's not how life works. Life is a bitch.
That's, what that just made me think of is we were talking about jujitsu before this started, and the kids will get promoted, but you only get promoted by your attendance and your skill and knowledge getting better. So, the promotions will be at the end of class, and like the 40 kids will stand up there, and like there's can be ranging from 5 to 17, and only like 3 or 4 of them will get promoted, and all the rest will just stand there
and watch the other ones get promoted.
Yeah. And but like that's how life is.
Yeah.
I think it's so much more valuable to know, like, they put in the work, they showed up every day, and they're getting promoted. And I mean,
but not only do they show up every day, because you can show up and not get promoted. Right?
Yeah, like a little bit as kids, but as you get older, like then you won't. But
yeah,
I think that culturally is a lot. Like, basically, in my mind, what that does is it doesn't give the kid enough motivation to get better. Yeah. Sometimes, most times,
and like at a minimum, show up and put in work. Like, they've at least got to do that. And our coach that runs the gym was very transparent.
But if they promoted them and they weren't showing up, then they're going to learn to not work hard.
That's what I mean. And he's very transparent. These kids show up every day. They work very hard. That's why they're getting promoted. Keep showing up. Keep coming to class, and you'll get promoted. And that's the lesson that's being taught.
Well, I'm guilty of letting the culture seep into my life a little bit, in the sense, like,
you son of a bitch.
My 4-year-old goes to a hip hop dance class, and at the end of the season they gave like a great achievement plastic medal. She was very happy about it, and I was like, what the fuck is that? Well, I didn't say fuck, but I'm like, what is that? Daddy, they gave me a medal. I'm like, what for? My wife was like, don't
don't do that.
Yeah, I'm like,
she knew exactly what you were gonna do.
Yeah, I was like, I told my wife, like, no, we're not encouraging this shit. We have to tell her that doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, she is 4, but I get that. But I don't give what other people can tell me, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. And I'm like, no, you're not a fucking expert to tell how I treat my kids and stuff. But it's like, no.
I remember playing baseball and not t-ball, but like a little league. And for a couple of years, like, I was on a team that was just like, we sucked. Like, we got like 7th place or whatever, out of 12, 10 teams, I don't know. And they give you a trophy, right? And like, and so like at the end of the year, we got like 7th place trophies. And I remember my dad being like, that's not, dude, don't even talk about that.
It doesn't mean shit. I mean, that comes to my mind. Like, taking things for granted. As simple as water.
What's that?
As simple as water. Water is so scarce in so many other areas.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right? Like, taking things I'm just giving as an example, taking things for granted.
Yeah, like wasting water.
Yeah, wasting water. The level of freedom that we have in the US, right? Like, it's not the same in the few countries that I know of. It's, we don't appreciate that. And then, what was eating my words about the Juneteenth, Black History Month and shit. That is, I get furious. Like, there is no need to designate a month to celebrate. And I don't want to get into that, but I don't want to discuss too much of religion, politics, and finance.
Somebody did have a really funny one. They're like, how come they get a whole month? Like, veterans get 1 day.
Yeah, it's like, it's
we don't have to get into it.
It's like, it doesn't make it. It's just to appease people. Same thing in India too. They have this like holidays like that cater to a certain segment of people. I'm like, no.
You got anything good to say about the U.S.?
Oh yeah, I mean, U.S. gave me a better life. Gave me all the opportunities. Gave me all the freedom.
So if you were, could you play devil's advocate for India? Like, what is, like, if you were going the opposite way, like saying, what is there much you can point to there that you say, like, you know what they do in the U.S. that they don't do there. I wish they did.
Well, I mean, one thing that
They have
I
a
can
family culture. Like neighbors talk to each other, take care of each other. Like you have neighbors here, how they would come check on you. They would share meals with you. They will get to know you better. There's like a community feeling so much in India, all over, and it's family is big part of Indian culture. Like both blood family relatives and neighbors too. Like my dad still has tenants um, that live next to him that help him out. You know, who's gonna come check on you if you're sick?
Right.
around here for neighbors and stuff. I mean, India is a developing country, right? I mean, there is a lot of advancements and stuff that happened, and I've left India 15 years ago, so I can't really. I'm not that attuned to India in my
probably a lot has changed in 15 years.
Mature and grown up years, as much as in my formative years, and I didn't have the opportunity as a child and going to college to experience a lot more in India than what I'm experiencing in the US. So I'm very far removed from India, honestly.
Do you have any interest in going back and taking the family and maybe like doing a permanent stay?
I have never worked in India, and I don't even know how that's going to work, or it doesn't even come as a thought. No.
Okay.
There's a fleeting thought once in a while about retiring in India because of the cost of living and stuff, but it's a fleeting thought, not realistic. I'm just so used to being in the US. I mean, like I said, like US gave me the opportunities to my career, I mean, my family, everything. So I'm very thankful. I mean, I went through the legal route of coming as a student, getting a work visa, getting a green card, becoming a citizen, all the paperwork that I've done the right way, and the opportunities that I took along the way, career and personal life, So yeah, this is my home country, USA.
Cool.
Yeah.
What do you got? Anything else, Kyle?
No, I'm good.
You want to wrap it up now? Sweet, man.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Thanks.
It was fun, absolutely. Take the gummy and go eat too.